Hello everybody and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program, where we have this extraordinarily silly thing, and we are going to want to do a little bit more work on it. Specifically, I want to pull this down, I want to get rid of this decoupler, and we are going to go to a Clampotron docking port here. So we're going to have a docking port like this, and then we're going to duplicate it and have it be like that. Now that's going to take up a little bit more vertical space. Are we good on that? Yeah, we're fine. No problem there. Now, I definitely do want to have some struts, making that a bit more solid of a connection, at least during ascent. This probably won't be... this might actually be a problem. I'm thinking about ways to address this, because we're going to have a pusher down here, right? And this might get replaced with a different, like, tug sort of ship that's intended to move this around. But that would need to have some way of just docking in and being solid in this joint, because otherwise I think we're probably very likely to have this joint be a problem. One thing we could think about doing is just having like cubic octagonal struts being here, and if I can get it to actually pop into place there. We might not be able to correctly move the camera for this. Hang on. That. Right there. Now, you'll note that this doesn't quite contact up here when we're straight on. So that should allow us to still dock, in theory. And if we don't have these struts, it would only allow us to bend so much. Unless it just clips through, which it probably would. We'll have to see if that would clip. It might. Now, this down over here, we need to address the positioning on these struts, so that seems fine. And then we need this thing to have more power, because it is not powerful enough. That is something that we unequivocally discovered last episode. So I'm just going to adjust that a little bit, and then we're going to grab this guy, this radial decoupler, and we're going to put it in about right... Do we want to put it in here? That does give us space, potentially, for another one over here. Just barely clipped together there. Okay. We need to move this one over by, like, 1 unit here. About like that. Now, these are not at the ideal height position here. We can do something like this, and then, like... That is not what I wanted to move. Like that. That's too low. About there. And then this one can be moved down to be about there. So, in theory, that should be approximately fine. I don't know what the strut situation on the bottom here is for this outside one. Looks like that is connected. Okay, so as you can see, our costs are ballooning, but we only need to put this thing up once, and then we need a refueling system for it, but that's a problem we can tackle at another date. We're going to launch this thing fully fueled, which is a mistake. We should not do that. We should develop the refueling system for this first, and the tug system, and launch it empty. But we're not doing that. We're doing it the other way, because we've got money to throw at the problem. So that seems absolutely fine for now. Now we need to adjust our staging here. So that's going to be something like this. What's that thrust to weight? 1.45. That is still on the low side. So I'm not terribly surprised about that one. And these would go here. That is correct. And that's all correct. Okay, perfect. So at this point, let's put this thing out for another simulated launch. Let's see how far it gets. It's going to get further, that's for sure. Also, another concern that I have right now is that we might not burn out the liquid fuel above the SRBs before the SRBs burn out. We now have 3 times the amount of liquid fuel, and it did burn out quite significantly before the SRBs did previously, but we'll see We'll see how that timing looks. Let's pin this open and let's pin this open so that we can keep an eye on these fuel levels. Okay, we'll put this on surface up, throttle up, and let's go. Definitely slightly faster off the pad, but it's slightly faster, not significantly. We are still draining our liquid fuel faster than we're draining our SRBs. That is a good thing. We're very, very happy about that. Still going to take this thing up quite high here. We're going to go until probably... I'm thinking an apoapsis of 20. It's actually draining at a very similar sort of speed, isn't it? Actually, I think the SRB is draining faster. Okay. That's not necessarily great. That means that we may need to reduce our amount of fuel on each stack, or just carry the dead weight of the SRBs. But that's going to be bad for our thruster weight. This is the concern that I had, right here. We'll see how that goes, in terms of timing. We're still moving pretty slowly, to be sure, but we've got a fair amount of SRB time left here. So we're currently at about 10 kilometers. So let's go ahead and take this over to orbital prograde. Our apoapsis is at about 25. So this is not going to be that significant of a turnover. And we're going to be maintaining these for a while. I'm now pretty concerned about the detachment here. We'll see how that goes. Okay, 50 kilometers. SRBs are burned out now, and you can see this is at 1.02. So that's not necessarily ideal, but we can continue to burn here for a little bit. I don't want to take us off of prograde. I want to be on the horizon right now, but I'm very concerned about our detachment, and that's about to happen. Okay. Spicy. That is definitely spicy. Let's take this on over to horizontal velocity up, and let's see if we manage to hold attitude there. Attitude is holding. Okay, so that's all good signs right there. That is all good signs. We're moving pretty quickly at this point, honestly, compared to where we have been. We've got a decent amount of DV left over. I think this is going to do it. I think this is going to get to orbit. Maybe not much further than that, but it doesn't need to. It really doesn't need to get much further than that. So we've got about a minute of burn time left here. We're just continuing to burn at the horizon here. I think we'll take our apoapsis up to about 100 kilometers. It really doesn't need to get any higher than that. Honestly, we'd be fine as is, but I want to get this speed going earlier rather than later, so this is going to be okay. We are out of the atmosphere at this point, so we can extend out our solar panels. That seems like a good thing to do. There we go. And we're at an apoapsis of 90 at this point. We are going to run out of fuel on our side stages soon. But we're also very close to entering orbital velocities, so that looks wonderful. 95 kilometer apoapsis, 97, 98, 99, and 100. We've got 106 meters per second left in this thing. So this is going to be difficult to turn. No doubt about that. This is way more DV than we need. We just want to barely squeak this thing up into orbit, about like this or so. Okay, we'll align to the node, but that's going to be incredibly slow to turn, even with this big reaction wheel here. What's our power situation? Okay, that's not great. That is not great at all. So power situation is not ideal. I turned off the SAS at this point because we just need to warp forward a bit. I'm watching that electric charge. I don't think we have enough electric charge right now to wait until this burn point. So I'm going to very slightly burn the engines. There we go. And that built us up some electric charge. A lack of electric charge is a problem, and that's something we can address in the tug. That's not a problem. Okay, so at this point, we've got 30 seconds. Once again, I'm watching that electric charge, and I'm slightly concerned about it. So I pushed a little further there. Okay, 10 seconds. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, mark. Okay, there we go. Goodbye, side tanks. Okay. So this will get us up into orbit, and we'll still have a little bit of fuel from this pusher engine. That seems good. And of course, we'll still have this fuel here, which is about 800 meters per second. We're going to have to replace this tug. This was never intended to be a long-term tug, as evidenced by the fact that it doesn't have like a probe controller or anything like that. This is just a temporary thing until we can get a better solution online. So at this point, we are entering orbit. I think we're going to graduate this from a simulated flight. There's no reason for this to be simulated from here. That looked silly, but functional, is the way I'm going to put it. Silly, but functional. So we've got a crazy amount of mass on this still. And what we need to do now is we need to get it docked up with our fuel production module here. So we need to set this as target. And our inclination is off by 1.4 degrees. We probably don't have time to do this at the ascending node because of our turn speed. So let's do this over at the descending node. And this is going to be 1.4 degrees. Okay, that seems fine. There we go. 54.2 meters per second, so that's going to use about a fifth of what's in this tank. Let's head on over to the node. And we'll slowly reaction wheel our way over, but electric charge is continuing to be an issue, and we're going to run out of power here. That's okay, because by the time we come around, we are going to have sunlight. So that'll be good. Eventually, this thing will be operating in a higher orbit and won't be a problem, and the tug will have better batteries built into it. I just didn't want the extra weight on this. That'll be on a separate launch. So that seems fine for now. We'll physics warp as we head towards-ish our target. But our batteries are currently dry, so we can't really correct this at all. So we're just going to position somewhat near our target, and then freeze our physics with time warp. The sun will come up very shortly. And there we go. Now we've got power. Perfect. So head on over to the node, and we've got about 8 minutes until this burn. Okay. So warp forward. Now about 2 minutes, 1 minute, and 40 seconds, 30, 20, 10, and 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, mark. Okay, now we should be in approximately the correct orbit. Approximately. I overshot that slightly, but it's probably good enough. Let's see here. Yeah, that's good enough. But we're in a very similar orbit here, so it's potentially going to require a lot of phases. That's fine, because this is all unmanned. So, yeah. If we took this with one more phasing orbit, that overshoots. So it's going to be in this next phasing here. Can I press this button, please? Thank you. So we're just going to want this to be somewhere around here or so. 10.9 kilometers. Best that I'm seeing is 0.2, and that seems great. So we'll align to that node, 21.3 meters per second. So honestly, we're still going to have a fair amount of fuel left over in these tanks. That's fine. We can move that fuel up to here once this is emptied out. So that seems good. Or more specifically, we can just pull from here first and then jettison this after we're docked up. So that seems great. We'll physics warp as we turn. And then we're going to have to do a bunch of phasing orbits. So this is going to be a bit fast here. Let's just make sure we're focused on Kerbin. There we go. And let's do some phasing orbits. So as we can see, our burn is going to be on this side as of right now. So I'm a little concerned about our electric charge again. And I'm going to turn our SAS off to reduce that drain amount. And I'm also going to potentially put our remote guidance unit into hibernation for just a few seconds here. This will preserve our electric charge. So 40 seconds. Let's warp forward a bit. 30 seconds. 20. 10. And let's take it out of hibernation at this time. 3, 2, 1, 0, mark. Okay. Our charge is built back up, and we just need to pursue this node a little bit. You can see just how much this drains our electric charge. That lack of battery is definitely biting us right now, but it won't be a problem later. Okay. We're going to call this good, turn the smart ASS off for right now, and freeze physics. Excellent. So that seems fine. We are now 0.2 kilometers of separation. So let's warp up over here. We're in target mode. And we're going to need to align to basically target retrograde. So relative velocity minus is where we're going to go. We're coming in at about 30 meters per second. And we know that we're not going to be in an exactly correct orientation here, and that's fine. We've got RCS on this, so we can definitely monoprop and correct that way. But for now, we need to get turned. So in we come. Okay. I'm going to start burning a little bit, even though we're a little early, because I want to be reducing our relative speed and putting us onto kill rot, because I want to do a little bit of a course correction here. Okay. That seems decent. Let's head to relative velocity minus. This still feels pretty fast, actually. We're still coming in at about 8.4 meters per second. And our turn rate is low. Let's reduce our speed further. Okay. We're no longer on a collision course. I think. I'm pretty sure we're no longer on a collision course. Frame rate has definitely dropped a little bit, no doubt about that. But let's just bring this down a smidge more. We're now down to 5 meters per second of relative speed. All we need to do is park next to each other and then align up. So that's all we're going to do here. So just going to bring this on down. We're now at about 3 meters per second of relative speed. 2.5. 2 meters per second. 1 meter per second. I'm going to call this good enough. Okay, so from here, we want to align to here specifically. And we want to make sure that we're controlled from here. Now I want to point at the target. And I'm going to swap over to the other vehicle. We're going to control from here. We're going to have to change that later, but that's fine. Set as target and point at target. So we'll just get these turned over to each other. And they're both going to be pretty slow at it, but that's fine. Absolutely A-okay. Eventually they'll get there. Eventually. This is almost painfully slow, but it's also kind of beautiful in a weird sort of way. Just incredibly painfully slowly turning towards each other, two absolutely massive ships like this. It's kind of almost a ballet in a way. A very, very painful ballet. So we're nearly in position at this point. That's looking good. Just waiting for them to get relatively aligned. We're not quite there, and they're going to be reacting to each other somewhat, so we're never quite going to be perfect, I don't think. But this is pretty close. Okay, let's burn in a little bit. We're coming in at 0.3 meters per second. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to use RCS to steer this. And I'm just adjusting our overall velocity. Of course, what this means is that we're also going to need to have some RCS on our tug. Because we're going to have to refuel that RCS. It will eventually run out. So that's noted, and we may want to slow down a little bit with RCS as well. I'm going to take this down to about 0.1 meters per second. There we go. And we should adjust our velocity a little bit. That seems to have moved on us, drifted a little bit. And we'll just very, very slowly bring these together. Excellent. No real problems here. We'll just have to continually adjust our velocity a little bit as we get closer. So let's warp in to be within about maybe like 12 meters. Okay, right about there. And now I want to do a change of our velocity because we definitely need to address it a little bit. Just set those nodes right on each other. And yeah, you can see we've definitely burned a little bit of our monoprop. Not a huge quantity, but some. And that means that we're going to have an ability to refuel not just our liquid fuel, but also our monoprop. So that's fine. This should, I think, be on docking trajectory at this point. I don't think we need to do any further adjustments. I'm like 45% sure about that. There we go. Perfect. So that seems great. And at this point, what we need to do is we need to pin open all of these tanks. So we're going to have this be up here. And I'm also going to make sure Smart ASS is off right now. So this is going to be, what, 12 total tanks? This is not actually necessarily taking the pin opens, which is a little awkward. We could do these just a few at a time, I suppose, and just be like, ouch, like this. So if we did it like 4 at a time like this, that would be theoretically viable. Theoretically, anyway. So we would definitely want to have this go a little faster. This is at 10x. Okay. So this tank did not quite fully fill those 4. Understood. That's fine. Next up, this one. So that should get those all filled. There we go. And we can unpin those and have this one be pinned. Cool. Unpin these. Thank you very much. And we'll go for 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's see here. 5, 6, 7, and 8. And keep in mind, we're not looking to fill this big orange tank. That tank is intended to remain empty. Why did this stop the transfer when I warped there? Because this one is not going correctly. Hang on. Why is this tank not wanting to fill? And that's odd. That's very odd. I didn't move the oxidizer there, but... Okay, let's get the oxidizer up there. That seems fine. We'll just get this tank empty for now. And that is this one here. So we also need to get this tank done. I don't want that going here. Okay. We'll repin this one. Close that. And... there we go. Out. Perfect. Now this is actually working correctly. So that looks good. Next up, we'll do this one. So we'll get that out. There we go. And we'll do this one. Actually, is that all 4 of these? No, this one has not yet been completed. Yeah, some of these haven't been done. I want to make sure that we get the fuel out of this tank, though, because we want to get rid of this. So we'll get that out of there, and then we'll decouple this. So that fuel is getting out of here. This is, of course, going to be way lighter once we get all this transferred. So that'll be way easier for this to push. Which is good, because we want to get it to, like, Minmus or something. And then this is going to be out here, and then we'll decouple this as soon as that transfer is completed. Okay. So let's go ahead and decouple this. There we go. We don't want to pull the fuel out of this tank, but we do want to pull the fuel out of this tank. So that looks good. And we'll just warp this forward as that fuel drains out. Getting very, very close at this point. Okay. So these are now all full. So we can unpin all of these. And it didn't take these unpins. Okay, cool. There. So that's now done. And we can just go through and double check that all of these are done. They should be, in theory. So these should all be at full fuel at this time. And that does indeed appear to be the case. This is at full fuel. And if this stack is, yep, that looks good. So this is now refueled at this time. Wonderful. So at this moment, what we would need to do is decouple this. We just went back behind the behind the planet. So we don't actually want to decouple at this moment because of battery concerns, but otherwise this is ready to decouple. The only other thing that I want to do is I want to go into here. And I want to equalize the weight here a little bit. So I'm going to move this fuel here. Okay, we've got that full. And this is still partially full. So that's noted. We're going to move all of that fuel. And I want to close these. This is just a temporary storage location. We don't want the fuel here long term. But we're going to move as much of that fuel as we can into here. Okay, so that's going to be a good chunk of it, anyway. And then where else can we store that fuel? Well, everywhere else over here is full, isn't it? Pretty sure it is. So we can only store so much of this fuel here right now. This tank is now empty, so it's just this tank that's the concern. Perhaps we could store it in nose cones. Okay. So I'm going to keep this pinned open, and I'm going to grab the nose cones here. Yeah, let's actually close this for now. And let's do in. Actually, let's pin that. Pin this. Pin this. And pin this. Stop this. And do out. And that's moving into here. Hang on. Stop that. No, this is fine. We'll just adjust this later. Okay, so we'll get all of that fuel out of there. That looks good. We'll now close this one. And we'll move this fuel out and into the nose cones. Hopefully we can hold all of it there. I think we can. Yeah, so that fuel is now up in the nose cones. It's not perfectly even in the nose cones, but it doesn't have to be. So now what we need to do is we need to take the fuel that's in the nose cones and leave it there for the moment. Then we need to grab this guy here, and we need to open up these tanks, because I want to have this weight be evenly distributed. So we now need to transfer this fuel out and into these 4. Like that. Next, we're going to have to pull the fuel out of the nose cones and back into here. Get out of here. There we go. So we're going to pin these guys open. Perfect. And in. Magnificent. So all of that fuel gets drained out. And now we're just going to evenly distribute it back into these tanks. So this will just make sure that our weight is nice and even. And then this tank over here. Perfect. So drain that fuel out. We should not have any fuel remaining in this tank. Every other tank on this craft should be completely full, and it is. And at this point, we've got our center tank on this craft full, and these tanks are pretty close. So this tanker is a little much. I think that's clear. But I want to warp to about here. There we go. And then we're going to decouple this. Just wanted to wait until we had light. So we're going to decouple this over here. So the Clampatron, this one, is going to undock. And we're going to kill rot. And we're going to turn on RCS. And we're just going to pull away very, very slightly. There we go. That looks good for now. And we're now able... This is definitely enough here to bring this over to Minmus. So we could do that, but I think we may want to park it in orbit here. Well, maybe not, actually. Maybe we do want to meet up in Minmus. This is a very partial system at this point, and I need to think about how we want to do that. But this is now refueled and is ready to go. So we're going to probably head out with this next episode. We'll see. It's past time to put a cut in, so I need to go ahead and do that. And next episode, we're probably going to head out to Duna with this, and we're going to leave our refueling system where it is for right now. We shouldn't need another one of these, but we will need more components to make it fully complete. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and a very special thank you to all of the channel members for making this video possible, including ALS Gamer, Dark Horse, Ethan Feldman, Aurelio, Upper Cumberland Gamers, Nick Smarty, Dimitri H, Punching the Microphone, The Lounge STL, and all the rest. And of course, you. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click the join button down below the video, and as always, I will see you all next time.